Awesome. Well, thank you all for being here today. We really appreciate your time and are looking forward to the discussion. I know we brainstormed a lot for this conversation around digital innovation, and we really felt like it was focused on the 4 main Ps, as we say: people, personalization, platforms, and partnerships. So really diving into the first piece of that, people. We know that people's interests are changing. They're evolving, they're interacting with media in a different way. So what are some of those change of interest that you've been seeing, and how are you adapting to those changes?
I'll start. So I'm at Wrigley, and so you'll recognize a lot of our brands: Snickers, M&M's, Skittles. And the thing that we always have to keep in mind is that we're primarily an impulse-driven brand. So nobody gets up in the morning thinking about Snickers or any of our brands. I mean, maybe people do, but it's probably not likely, right? So we have to think about, how do we create an experience for our consumers that makes them want to continue to buy our products over and over again. So we always say internally, our role as marketers is to make people laugh, make people cry in a good way, or be useful. So when we think about our marketing campaigns, it's all about thinking in generations versus quarters. And so that's how we've been able to create these iconic campaigns like Skittles, Taste the Rainbow, and Snickers, You're Not You When You're Hungry. So then you bring on, so that's been working for generations. It's been great. And then you bring in the millennials at first, and then Gen Z, who are completely transforming the way we think about marketing as a whole, and just digital as a whole. So what we know about particularly Gen Z, we know that they're very values-based. We also know that they're incredibly digitally savvy. So we need to make sure that we're creating experiences that make them want to continue to buy our product over and over again. But we also have to, because we are so impulse driven, we also have to make sure that we are keeping up with technology and meeting them where they are. So a couple of the speakers have already talked this morning around how the consumer journey is completely changing. It's no longer linear. People are moving from one place to the next very quickly. And so our role is to make sure that we are meeting the consumer where they are, and we're not making it hard for them to buy our products.
I'm Marcela. I'm at Altice USA, better known as Optimum, internet service provider. We're thinking a lot about changing consumer behavior. It's impacting not only our marketing mix when we think about where to put our marketing dollars, it's also impacting our product mix. You know, when we think about the changing landscape of video and the shift from linear to streaming, which I'm sure all of you guys are thinking about. It's led to, obviously, us to shift more of our advertising dollars into channels like OTT and online video, and away from linear television, as I'm sure is happening across the board. And also radio to digital audio is an important one. And also, I think, consumer trends, a lot of trends, after COVID, a lot of things happened where consumer behavior trends have changed. So it's media consumption, but also consumer trends. And one of the big things is the emergence of gaming, which I know we've talked a lot about today. This is important for us, especially as we're developing higher and higher internet speed products and connectivity products, and thinking about how we can offer the best in connectivity to people. Gamers are an important segment for us, and so it means being on Twitch and being around gamer influencers and having gamer talent at our retail stores. And these are some of the things that we've started to do, but really to push the envelope with new audiences and address the new trends that are happening with consumers. So that's been really important focus.
Hi, I'm Colleen Sherry. I am the digital lead for the beauty and body care brands at Henkel. We're a global CPG company. And the brands I work on, Dial Soap, Schwarzkopf Hair Color, and Got to Be Hair Color and Styling. When we think about people, I think about, bringing it down to the real human level. Yes, we have our audiences that we're targeting, but bringing that element of humanity into it, and also service. Like, what do people want? What do they need? You know, Dial soap played a pivotal role during the COVID pandemic when everyone was clamoring for the antibacterial soap. And so we really wanted to focus on the needs that people have and bring them solutions. Same thing with the hair color. Like, people have real needs with the hair color. And again, during COVID, when the salons were closed, we saw a big influx coming into at-home hair color, especially with people who'd never tried it before. And that's kind of daunting if you've never tried it before. So we took the human perspective. What do they need? What would that person need if they've never colored their hair before and have to do it now? And how can we convert that customer by showing them how great it is and how, you know, it's really not as difficult as you think. So focusing on the consumer, the people, what they need, what they want, and how we can educate them. And then we think of platforms next. You know, how can we reach them? But first identifying that key need and focusing on our consumers.
Thank you all. And I think that kind of leads into our next part of people, which is when we think about people, we're not just thinking about the people that we're trying to reach, but we're looking inward and looking at our own organizations. And when it comes to digital innovation, it's important that we enable our own people to achieve those changes and innovate in the way that we want. So when it comes to enabling the change management piece of your organizations, how are you all approaching that?
Yeah, it's a huge part of this. We can talk about all the great new ways to connect with consumers, but if you don't have people actually leading it, spending time on it, actually focusing on it, it doesn't work. I think the easiest way to think about it is you wouldn't spend $50 on creative for a multi-million-dollar campaign. Why are you making this a 10% side hustle of a junior associate to launch something new? It doesn't work. So in J&J, the journey we've been on for about the last 2 years or so is really staffing up in these key areas and really professionalizing a lot of these important parts of our mix. So we have people focused on digital shelf, and that's all they do. We have people focused on influencer, paid media, social, so on and so forth, and actually putting that focus and attention on it and then embedding it into our business. So it's not something that's off on the side. It's just ingrained and part of the core commercial team. And that's a huge shift for a lot of us. I think historically we've been doing it on the side, doing it in incubators, or maybe making it, you know, a small percentage of one person's job. But to some extent, you have to put your money where your mouth is, and we've seen a ton of success by doing it that way.
Yeah, just to build on that, we were also in the middle of a major digital transformation at Mars, and one of the things that we're focused on is if we're trying to, if the consumer journey is shifting, how do we then mirror that internally, which is, you know, a massive shift. And so how do we stop, kind of what Matt said, is stop working in silos or working in, you know, one-off areas and become truly more agile in how we are organized as a team and how we're creating cross-functional teams to solve business problems that are not just a handoff from one department to the next. So that involves, you know, a complete shift in how our ways of working are organized, but then also the capabilities that we are building for and making our associates internally set up for success so that we are upskilling associates. I mean, there's no way we can all learn as fast as the world is changing. So how do we make sure that we're offering that training and those capability building moments for our associates to learn on the job and not just, to Matt's point, hand it off to a junior associate that, you know, may be more digitally savvy, but isn't really going to be able to truly transform the organization.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think when you talk about the consumer journey and your own journey as an organization, something that we've touched on too, we know is a huge priority for people today is personalization. And we know that that's becoming an important factor for everyone that's interacting with media. And when you think about maintaining the relevancy and relatability to people, how are you all approaching that personalization aspect of the consumer journey?
I can start here. So for us, personalization, we are thinking about the relationships that we have with everyone in our local communities, right? So first, it's thinking about the relationship that they have with us. If they have a relationship, what do we know about them? It's use of first-party data, as I'm sure has come up here. Thinking about what their product mix, what would they additionally benefit from? Are they a loyal customer? Do they need mobile service on top of their internet services? And so personalization in that sense, and thinking about how our marketing strategy is tailored to the relationship with us. If they're not a customer, were they ever a customer? Did they have a bad experience? Do we want to address that in some way? But also, given that Optimum is your local connectivity provider, being local is a very important component of our personalization strategy. Being really speaking to people about their local communities and in the voice of what they care about locally. So this could come to life, in a social post that's talking about what we've done in your community with your school district, or it could come to life with, an ad or a digital ad or a billboard that calls out your local area and your local town and what's available there. But speaking to people about what's going on in their local community and about things that they're passionate about in their community, local sports, Texas football. Is a really key way of how we're speaking to people in a way that's personal to them, but also actually is future-proof if you think about it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the whole idea of local community got even stronger as we were all home a lot more often over the last 2 years and realized how important it is to connect with your local community. Also provides, valuable services or connections with cause marketing that are important to people. Dial Soap has a partnership with Donors Choose, which provides, has a connection with Teachers List that provides Dial Soap to teachers in the classroom as part of the Back to School list. So just a way to locally connect with people. But in terms of personalization, so we kind of look at it both ways. I mean, obviously our hand raisers, the people who sign up for our email programs, who reach out to us for advice on hairstyling and hair color, are leading in really important consumers for us, and obviously we want to continue to build the relationship with them. We also, when you think about a category like hair color, personalization is so important, because if I'm putting an ad out there for a rich cappuccino brown and you're a lifelong blonde, that ad's not going to mean anything to you. And you have to dig pretty deep down into the data to determine hair color. You can do it, but it's so much better to build that database yourself so you really know that you're getting the right message to the right person. So, we've made some forays into DCO, dynamic creative optimization, and we want to continue to do so by, taking a base creative asset and putting overlays that have the local city call-outs, as Marcela mentioned, is really important. And then went even further with, also bringing into that video asset the local FSI offer at the retailer that we know you like to shop at, with a map that shows you how close you are to it. So getting that consumer with the data closer and closer and closer to conversion, but also providing a service to them. If they're interested, here's where you can get it, and by the way, you're a mile away. So just being, once again, being very servicey and helping the consumer with their needs and to make that purchase. The other way we look at personalization is through our digital tools. So we have a Find My Color tool for Schwarzkopf, where the consumer can click into the experience. It's a hosted website that we promote, and intending to promote it at shelf. Think about when you go into a drugstore, you're standing in front of this sea of hair color, like where do you even begin? So you can use this tool to put in, okay, what's my current hair color? What hair color do I want? What percentage of gray do I have? What's the texture of my hair? And the tool will surface up, here are the very best recommendations for you, and give you several options. You can either click to purchase right then and there on the site, or if you're in store at shelf, you can find that color and know. And it also has a live try-on feature. You scan your turn on your camera and you can try the colors on. So again, it's really a great way for the consumers to have confidence that they're choosing the right color and making their interaction with us very personal to them and their needs.
The only thing I would add quickly is I think the future of personalization is a lot more participatory. So you're going to do a lot better than guessing with data by knowing within meaningful engagement. So I think examples like the hair selector, we have tools like that as well with a number of our brands it's just a lot more meaningful for the consumer and probably a lot more effective.
Agreed. And as we look at how we're going to achieve that personalization, the meaningful interactions, as you're saying, we know that there's so many new platforms out there to do so. There's some really exciting opportunities out there, several platform options. So what kinds of media platforms are you looking at for the future? And then on top of that, how do you plan to measure success within those, given that they are newer? What are some of the KPIs that you might be looking at to see if they are working for your overall strategy?
Who wants to go first?
Okay, I'll start. Definitely for us, I know a lot of companies have been out there in the influencer space specifically. Like we've talked beauty, we've talked, they've been doing TikTok, and for us, it's influencers is a relatively new space just in the past couple of years that we've gone into. And I think it's also a way to personalize, especially since we're thinking about influencers generally, but also in the realm of gamers, like I said earlier, and local athletes, and again, through that community lens. So definitely influencers from a measurement standpoint, that's definitely a challenge. But, we're looking, if you're in our community, we don't have we're not really doing awareness. Everyone knows who Optimum is if you live there because they've come to they've put a door hanger on your home. We have, but it's really more about how do you feel about us, right? So that's the approach that is going to fuel measurement for those types of initiatives. Like, how do you feel about us? Do you feel positive? Do you have a positive kind of outlook on Optimum? Do you think of us in a good way? And nobody absolutely adores their internet provider, or maybe some people do, but we love to hear, I've had no issues, and that's wonderful for us. So that's a big piece of measurement, the sentiment and the listening from a social standpoint. And I think other platforms, we are looking at emerging media as ways to reach people, like audio. Amazon Alexa ads is big. It's cool because you can kind of ask Alexa for more information, so you can kind of measure that way and see who's responded. That's another interesting thing that we've done, and it also ties back to the personalization conversation we were having earlier.
Yeah, just to build on that, we're kind of looking at it in two different ways. One is deepening our relationships with the platforms we already have. We've been working with for years. So that's everyone from Google to Meta to Amazon, but then also even EA, for example, to keep on the gaming thing, we've been partnering with Madden for 10 years now. And what's been great about that is we've been able to, just like with our other partners, be able to get first look and beta opportunities with our current partners that enable us to learn with platforms that we trust. But then also sprinkling that in with, okay, what are the new and where are our consumers going, and how is the consumer journey changing? And so looking at, obviously, TikTok is a big one. Marina had mentioned in the last session, obviously that's like the TikTok made me buy it is a thing. So then how do we make sure that we're developing the right content for those different platforms? But I think it's a balance of trying new platforms out and seeing what works for our products, but then also and engaging with our consumers, but then also deepening our relationships with our current platform partners.
Yeah, I think with the way we think about it, just to summarize, is we have so many different brands. So some different emerging platforms may be more appropriate than others, depending on what brand or category we're in. The thing we would look at is where are consumers and where can we add value? It's, live streaming is a good example. I think there's a lot of people, everyone essentially is on different social platforms. Live streaming is something that a lot of people engage with, but I don't know that our consumers want to see QVC on TikTok. That's not necessarily adding any value. They're just getting directly sold to, versus maybe we have a dermatologist, and we had a live session where they're explaining different, ins and outs of facial skincare and how to have a healthy complexion and stay safe in the sun, or, whatever the topic is. That's actually adding value. We can sell product at the same time, but it's how do we do it in a way that's unique to us, that makes sense for us, and not just running to create a Roblox whatever because it's an ad age. It's a bad reason to invest your money. But if my consumers are there and there's something I can do that's meaningful, then let's look at it.
Yeah, I just want to add too, building off of what Heather said, we approach it in the exact same way, like leaning into our trusted partners, but also we have a specific framework of optimize, improve, innovate that, we can use to carve out that space for the new ideas, the innovations that are coming down the pike. Sometimes you'll start the planning year and in the digital industry, things don't even exist. By mid-year, maybe there's something really new that all of a sudden becomes very hot, and we want to carve out a little space in that innovation bucket to be able to try it, or maybe a new beta becomes available, or maybe someone comes up with a great idea, or a new influencer gains prominence. So it's about creating that space, staying with your trusted partners, it works, pursuing improvements in those trusted partners, new opportunities, but then having that wild card, having that white space, and having the resources to be able to act on it.
It's interesting to hear you talk about how you're building these partnerships with new platforms as well as growing your partnerships with existing platforms, which leads us into our last and final P, as we say, of digital innovation, partnerships. And here at Google Cloud, we aim to be that trusted cloud partner. And we've seen the value of partnerships between ad tech and martech, as I'm sure you all have as well. And something that we've seen really come to light over the last few years is that partnership between data and the creative aspect of building out your media plans to reach the people, as we've talked about. So when you think about partners in the future, what does that partnership vision look like to you?
I think it's really important to work with trusted partners, especially on new innovations. When you're entering into a new space, you want that expertise. Obviously Google comes with all kinds of data resources that, we've worked with them to build creative assets based on their data and even identify creative themes based on our search information and the data, wealth of data that their team can provide. I think we're going to see a lot more of that, of data-informed creative, not as, something it might be nice to try, but like as you're always going to do it. Like you're always going to start with the data to identify those themes that are really going to resonate. You don't have to guess whether it's going to work. Now, that has to balance with creative excellence because, you don't just want a pure data play when it comes to creative, but I think you're going to see more creative teams leaning into data and ad tech more. And right from the very beginning, you don't want a scenario where you're just having a creative agency in a silo creating a 30-second spot, then hands it off to media to run it, and then hands it off to an ad tech vendor. What can I do with this? Maybe I can fix it up and make it work with our offering. I think everyone should be coming together from the beginning to ideate and really create something that's going to, perform really well because it's adhered to all the best practices and everyone's working on it together from the beginning. And then the other thing I would say is, when we're entering some of these new spaces, the metaverse comes to mind. Everyone's continuing to chatter about it, to be interested in it, explore it. How do you need the right partners to enter into it. So got to be Brand, which is color and styling for hair. It's more of our Gen Z millennial brand, very bold colors. Recently dipped our toe in the water with the metaverse, but we worked with our PR agency. We worked with some big influencers, Avani Gregg, who is a big TikTok star. She has 41 million followers. Also, Tati Gabriel, who is an actress right now in the Netflix series You. She's our current Got to Be brand ambassador. And we partnered with Ditch the Label, which is an organization that helps prevent cyberbullying. And we worked with Vadim, who was an expert in the space. So with all of that expertise, we put together a virtual self-expression summit in the metaverse. And that was, our first test of, what something could look like there. We didn't aim to do it ourselves. We leaned on the experts. We brought a lot of people to the table with a lot of expertise, and I think that's the way to go. Same thing with dynamic creative optimization. Yes, you can do it yourself in-house. Requires lots of resources. You're not necessarily going to get it to the extent that you would like. Maybe you'll get 5 or 6 different versions versus thousands of versions. But if you work with a partner who has a lot of expertise, not just in the data, but in the serving and the building of the creative, then all of a sudden you're really going to see scale. So it's identifying where you want to be, which platforms and spaces or innovations you want to lean into, and then finding the people who are best at it based on what your business needs are.
Wonderful. And I know we only have a few minutes left, so since we are at Google, I felt that it was appropriate to ask a very googly question, which is a lightning round. So what are your predictions for the future of media and marketing? It can be whatever you're feeling.
I'll start. So mine's actually more from a workplace perspective and for people just in general. Back to our first P, is I think there's a big debate on hybrid working, remote working, what's going to pan out. There's some organizations that are very much 100% back in the office. There are some that have gone, such as Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan Chase, and then there's other companies that are much more you don't have to be in the office at all, like an Airbnb. And so I think, and then there's some that are in the middle, which is more like Apple. So I think where we're going to eventually land with most companies is that will be somewhere in the middle. But the interesting part about that is thinking about the different phases of your career, right? And so when you think about when you first entered into your career, it was very important to have FaceTime and to connect with people in person. And so I do think this is more of I don't know if it's a prediction, but I feel like it's important for the younger generation to be in the office because that's where they're really going to be able to excel at their careers. And so that's just from a mentorship perspective. I still think in-person connections are the best to have. So that's my predictions list.
FaceTime is still important. It's just
FaceTime is still
now
important.
It's defined differently. It's that thing on your iPhone.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Well, mine's related to workplace too. And it's a little bit more quirky, but so I think that there's going to be a merger of this trend of people working, more often working remotely with the metaverse. So I think that in the future, and I hope that you're going to be able to put on your VR goggles and be in the office with everyone else in a metaverse-like office space environment. It's going to be so great for commuting. We're just going to put on our VR goggles in the morning and we're going to be in the office with everyone else and be able to interface just like this. Just
I love it.
Not. I hope.
I'm going to take that one step further. I'm looking kind of even further down the road. I think holograms and holographic technology are going to come into play. My interest was piqued by the ABBA concert. Did you guys see that? ABBA put on a hologram concert this summer with their holograms of their younger selves and with a live audience. And I believe they were singing in the background. I believe it was really them singing, but the holograms were performing. And that was the first time I've seen some big piece of entertainment using hologram technology. I'm like, there's something here. It's starting. It's starting with entertainment, and I predict it is eventually going to have implications in advertising and marketing.
I guess I'll go completely different direction and talk not about the workplace or the metaverse. I think we'll see a continued march away from advertising and towards content in the overall ecosystem. And that has implications for brands, obviously, but also the agency industrial complex will have to adapt or go out of business. And then in terms of the talent we have to have in our different brands and companies, thinking more about storytelling, engagement, what the consumer actually wants. Advertisements are interruptions, and it's too easy to opt out of it now between premium subscriptions, on-demand swiping and being able to just skip things. So I think we're going to see a continued shift away from advertising and towards content.
Well, I'm excited to see which of these predictions come true in the future. This has me very pumped up. But thank you all for your time today. And I think we are transitioning to a networking break. All right. So I think we'll take a 10-minute break.